All right, guys, 6-5. This should be, Lord willing, my last lesson like this, and then we should all be back together. Well, at least I will be back on campus. I guess some of you maybe still aren't back on campus, but 6-5 is radical and rational exponent equations. So I'm just going to talk you through kind of the process here. First of all, make sure with these that you show your work. So you need to write the problem down, show me what you're doing, and then box or highlight your answers. If you don't do those things, and when I say write the problem down, you can take a copy of it and drop it into your document so you don't have to rewrite the problem. But I need to see the problem so I can see what you did to it, because there's just a lot of steps. So make sure you're showing me what you're doing. The steps to solving these types of equations, the first thing you're going to do is you are going to isolate the radical, okay? Get it by itself. All we want is everything under the radical symbol, nothing outside of it. And then once you've done that, you will square both sides. So let me show you on this first one what this looks like. If we want to get the radical by itself, we need to get that 2 out of there. So we're going to subtract 2, and we get the square root of 3x minus 2 equals 6 minus 2 is 4. And now we've isolated the radical. The radical is by itself. So now what we can do is we can square both sides. So we're going to square that whole thing, and we're going to square this side. When you square a square root, it just gets rid of all of that, and you're left with the radicand, which is 3x minus 2 equals 16. Add 2, so you get 3x equals 18, divide by 3, so x is 6. Okay, now if you want to check your work on this, all you have to do is plug it back in. 2 plus the square root of 3 times 6 minus 2 equals 6. Okay, so 3 times 6 is 18. 18 minus 2 is 16. So it's 2 plus the square root of 16 equals 6, or 2 plus 4 equals 6, which is true. So you know you got the right answer. Okay, letter B here. Again, isolate the radical. So we got to get just this portion of it by itself. Okay, the way we do that is first we add 12. So 2 times the square root of 5x plus 1 should equal 12. Then we're going to divide by 2. So the square root of 5x plus 1 equals 6. And now you can square both sides because now the radical is isolated. So square and square, you get 5x plus 1 equals 36. And then the algebra, take away the 1. So 5x equals 35. And then divide by 5. So x is 7. Okay, so really it's just those first 2 steps that are new, and then it's basic algebra from there. So keep that in mind. Here's a little side note for you over here. Okay, a little reminder. If a radical, when it's all by itself, if a radical is isolated and it's equal to a negative number, you can't solve it. Okay, now notice this. There's a negative over here. And there's a radical, but there's something outside of the radical. So you still want to isolate first. Don't just assume, oh, there's no solution to this. Because this one, actually, there is a solution. Because when we add 10, we don't have a negative anymore. So it's the square root of 2x plus 1 equals negative 5 plus 10 is 5. And now we can solve that. So what we do is square both sides. And we get 2x plus 1 equals 25. Take away the 1, so 2x equals 24. Divide by 2, so x should be 12. Okay, so that's the first type of problem you're going to be seeing. Then we're going to move on to rational exponents. Tell your neighbor what a rational exponent is. A rational exponent. You're right, it's a fraction. So rational, something like this, right? A over B would make it rational. So a fraction exponent is what we're looking at. Now, Sometimes when you're trying to solve something, it's pretty simple to see what it is just because you kind of know the numbers well and makes it easy. So like for instance, if I said the square root of x is 5 and you had to figure out what x was, you'd probably be like, oh, if x is 25, the square root of 25 is 5, right? That's pretty simple. But when it's not so simple is when you have something like this, where we say x to the 3/2 power is 8, okay? It gets a little bit tricky. Like, ooh, what is it that I could take a square root of and then cube so that I get 8? Or vice versa, take the cube root of and then square so that I get 8. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to raise it to the reciprocal on both sides, okay? So if I have x to the 3/2 power equals 8, if I take this to the 2/3 power, then I have to do it to this side too, right? Think about this. This is what? 3/2 times 2/3 is, it's 1, right? So whenever you take it to a reciprocal power, it's always going to be a first power. 3 times 2 is 6, 2 times 3 is 6, so it's really 6/6, which is 1, okay? So now this, you already know how to do. That is a cube root, and then we square, or we square and then we cube root, either way is fine. So I'm going to cube root 8, and then I'm going to take that and I'm going to square it. So x will be, the cube root of 8 is 2, so 2 squared is 4. So that means if I had this, I could say x equals 4, right? 4 to the 3/2 power is 8, okay? So steps to do this. First of all, you need to isolate the power. And then raise both sides to the reciprocal power, okay? That's key. Raise it to the reciprocal power, and that's going to simplify it for you. Okay, so example number 2 here. Just like we said before, first step is isolate. So in order to isolate your power here, we have to get rid of this 2. So we're going to divide by 2 and divide by 2. So I get x plus 2 to the 3/2 power equals 27. Okay, now once we've isolated, which now we have, now it's everything that's left is taken to the power. Once we've done that, then what you're going to do is you're going to take everything to the reciprocal power. So if it was the 3/2 power, now it's the 2/3 power, but golden rule of algebra, whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So we're going to take them both to the 2/3 power, okay? That makes this go away. So we just have x plus 2 on the left. Over here, 27 to the 2/3 power, that's the cube root of 27, and then we're going to square that. Okay, so this is x plus 2 equals cube root of 27 is, that's a 3, right? And then square it is 9, okay? Now, here's the thing. You guys have shown me that you know how to do this on previous things, right? So at this point, if you want to plug this into your calculator, you go 27, the little caret, okay? Where you have to be careful is you need to put parentheses around 2 divided by 3. If you don't put parentheses in, it's going to do it wrong, okay? So if you want to play it safe and not mess with the calculator, that's fine. If you want to plug it in like this, 27 caret parentheses 2 divided by 3, it will tell you that that's 9, okay? I'm okay with that right now. Okay, so take away 2, and we get x equals 7, and that is your answer. Okay, letter B here. Again, first step is to isolate. So we are going to divide by 3, and you get x minus 1 to the 3/5 power equals 8. Okay, what's your next step? Tell your neighbor. Right, we're going to take it to the reciprocal, 5/3. So 8 to the 5/3 power. So now we have x minus 1 equals, again, if you want to plug it into your calculator, 8, the caret button, parenthesis, 5 divided by 3, parenthesis. Technically, you shouldn't have to do that back one. But if you plug that in, you would get 32, right? It's saying the cube root of 8, and then we're taking it to the 5th power. So 2 to the 5th power is 32. Okay, so do it like this in the calculator or do it like this in your head. Either way is fine. Add 1, you get x equals 33. Okay. All right, letter C, last one, and you got to be a little bit careful with this one. This is something that gets overlooked a lot. I'll show you as we go, but here it is. So for this one, if we're dividing by 2, we get x minus 2 to the 2/3 power equals 25. Okay, what's your next step? Tell your neighbor. Right, take the whole thing to the reciprocal power, to the 3/2 power. Okay, so here's the deal. This goes away. So we're left with x minus 2 equals 25 to the 3/2 power. Now, when you take a 3/2 power, that's the square root of 25. And then you're going to cube that, right? Or you could plug it into your calculator, 25 to the 3/2 power. But here's the thing. You took a square root. And when in an equation, we take a square root of something, how many answers are there? There's 2. For all these other ones so far, you've been taking a cube root. Remember when the root number, the index is odd, we just take the one answer, okay? When your index is even, and it's an equation like we're working with here, it's a plus or minus, okay? So this is going to be, square root of 25 is 5, cubed is 125. But because it's plus or minus 5, then it's plus or minus 125. So you get plus or minus 125 here. Okay, so just notice when your problem starts with a 2 as the power, that means you're going to be taking a square root, which means you should get 2 answers. Okay, so if your power is even, a 2, a 4, you're going to get 2 answers. Typically it's a 2 if you're going to get 2 answers, but could be a 4 too. So just be careful with that, okay? To finish solving this then, we would say add 2 to both sides. So x equals 2 plus or minus 125. So 2 plus 125 is 127. 2 minus 125 is a negative 123. And that is your answer. So pretty short lesson. You have the rest of class to work. So go ahead and get going on that. I hope to see you on Tuesday. No school on Monday. Hooray. Celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. and the wonderful work that he did. And hopefully I will see you in person on Tuesday. Have a good weekend.